G'day guys, it's Mark from ETFtracker here, and we're taking a look at the ETFtracker forum. And one of the questions that has come up, take a look at it over here, is in the feature requests. It could have gone in feature requests or general discussion, but it was a question around portfolio ideas for ETFs. So this commenter, Index Newbie, asked, "Hi, I'm a retail investor looking to buy some ETFs, but I don't know what to pick. Do you have a preset set of filters or screens that can help a beginner to know what to look for when selecting ETFs?" And I'll explain my answer here, but I thought, and I also mentioned what ETFs I'm actually invested in right now. So I thought it would be good to take a look at these ETFs and see what ETFtracker says about them. So we're going to take a look at it here on the page, but that's ACDC, Asia, ATEC, Cure, Ethi, Moat, NDQ, and VAP. So let's take a look at it here on ETFtracker. I'll just remove myself from the screen there. So first of all, what we've got to do is once we've got ETFtracker loaded up, we're going to want to take a look at the filters and put in those ETFs that we mentioned. So it was ATEC, Asia. You can scroll on the page if you want to bring those up. There's ACDC there. What else do we have? We can scroll down and we can grab Ethi. There was also Moat. Make sure that we pick all those up. So what else do we have? So we have ACDC, Asia, ATEC, Cure, Ethi, Moat. So we've got Ethi and Moat. So let's say Cure. So we add Cure. And then we also had NDQ and VAP, which is a property one. So NDQ, there's the HNDQ, which is a hedged one, which I didn't pick. There's benefits and there's pros and cons of that. But anyway, we've got all those ones picked. That's 8. So we can see we've got the 8 funds here. And the ETFtracker data goes back to 2017. That's going back to the date at which it is made available from the ASX. So we get our data from the ASX and Chi-X. We can see here the average return. So we're on a returns page. There's 3 menus here under performance. There's 1 month returns, 1 month versus 1 year, and 3 year versus 5 year. So we'll just minimize that. We can see that the average, the best average has been ATEC. ATEC's only been around, click on that, since March last year. It was really interesting because last year when it launched to a minus 19% kind of month, because that was the month when everything was going down. So it was just really poor timing, but it did really well to bounce back. It bounced back well after that, and then you can see other months of solid kind of returns there. So the data here is saying that if we'd had all of these, even though some came in later, if we had all of these since 2017, we would have had about 96% returns. These returns, this 1 month return, takes into account that dividends are reinvested. So the ASX reports, and also Chi-X does this as well, the total 1 month returns, which includes dividends being reinvested. Okay, so and distributions being redistributed back into the ETF. So that's what that is there. And so second was NDQ. There was Asia, ACDC as well. We can take a look at this as well just on the last financial year. So we've done some reviews of what's happened in the last financial year, so might as well just take a look at it there. So we've just selected that for 2020, minimize that, select all of 2021, even though we don't have July onwards, we've only got data up to June, we can just select 2021, all of it to see that information there. Okay, so what we see here is that if all of these had been held even weighted, so even though in my portfolio I have these at different weights, holding all of those would have returned about 32.9% over that last 12 months. And we can see here some further details. It's across 6 categories, those 8 funds. We can see, let's take a look at 1 month versus 1 year returns. Can see that ACDC is the highest in terms of averages. That 1 year return does change over time. So we see here that ACDC, it has had, what's that, 1 year return of about 80%, and it is just under 4% in terms of the average there. So if we have some of these funds that don't actually go back more than 3 or 5 years, so there's only 3 that have the 3 and 5 year performance. So the others won't show here. So NDQ, Moat, and VAP. We can see here that Ethi does have some 3 year returns, but because that doesn't have 5 year, we don't see it here. Another important thing to look at is, are there a good amount of funds in each of these ETFs? We can see that the biggest by far is VAP and NDQ. Ethy is not far behind. It's interesting, Ethy at 1.6 billion in terms of the overall ESG ETF market. There's about 4.2 billion, so it's nearly half of that is Ethy. Then we've got Asia, which is the Asia Technology Tigers. So that's a good one as well. And we can see the growth in monthly funds under management just continuing to rise there. So it's about 7.2 billion in terms of those 8 ETFs that we've chosen. The change in fund each month is also shown here. Another important one to look at is the net inflows. So in terms of inflows, we can see that on average, the most goes to NDQ. If we want to see what that was for each month, we can click on each of the months to see that change. So in terms of June, VAP had the most at 41.6 million, followed by ACDC and Ethy, not far behind that. July last year was Ethy that had the most at just under 95 million in terms of inflows just for that month. And then this chart at the top right here is looking at 1 month returns. So ACDC had the best average 1 month returns over the 12 months that we've chosen, and what the funds inflow were for that. So NDQ has the most inflows, but its returns were around the middle of the pack on average. But we can select it for a particular month and we can see how that scatter plot changes each month. Okay. Another one to look at is transactions. So let's look at number of trades for these ETFs that we've got in our portfolio. So NDQ has the most in terms of trades, and it makes sense because a lot of people that will buy NDQ want that US exposure and they don't have a particular thematic or sector that they're after. They just want to buy the whole of NASDAQ. So what you can see here is NDQ, and if you hover over that, the description that comes up there is a description of what is basically going on with that BetaShares ETF. It tracks the NASDAQ 100 index before fees and expenses. Okay, and very interactive again. So as you click on each of these ETFs, you can see things change there. So another one is liquidity and spread. And liquidity is to do with the volume of the ETFs, just how easy it is to buy those ETFs. So you want something with high liquidity and low spread. So the spread is the difference between the bid and the ask. If you've got a high spread and very low liquidity, it's going to be hard if you need to get out of that ETF for whatever reason. So looking at stuff that has high liquidity and low spread. So we've got the spread here. So we want low spread. So it's a reverse axis here. So low spread, but we want high liquidity. So liquidity on the x-axis. So we don't have too much in that area there, but it does change over time. So ACDC has decent spread and high liquidity as of the month of June. We can see how that changes over time. So remembering we're looking at the last 12 months, so that's probably the best one for us in terms of liquidity and spread. We don't have anything right here in this upper right corner, but Asia, ATEC, and ACDC, the A's, they've been doing pretty well for us there, and NDQ is not too bad as well. For those that are interested in distributions or dividends, they call them distributions in ETF world. We can see here which ones have given us the most average over the 12 months, and it's been Cure and Ethy. But in the month of June, we can see Cure and Ethy there, what the percentages were, and how that changes over time. So it's the historical distribution yield that is reported from the data that comes out of the ASX. We'll do another video on the data and where that comes from, just so that if anyone else wants to do this kind of stuff, great, go ahead. You can download it all into Excel, or you can use ETFtracker to help you look at those things. Costs are also important, so we cover management expense ratios, and we can see here which ones have the most in terms of the management expense ratio, the highest, and just how that changes over time. So ACDC, for example, has the most average over that 12 months. But that has changed. So it's gotten cheaper down to 0.7%. It was at 0.8% for the majority of the last 12 months. We can take a look at Asia. So that hasn't changed. Ethy hasn't changed. Moat is the same. So it's not often that they do change, but if they do, that's something to definitely take a look at. And we've got the chart here of 1 month returns versus the MER. So should probably do a reverse of this. We actually want something reverse where it's like the lower MER, management expense ratio, versus like the returns, so upper right there. But in any case, we can change that in the ETF tracker. We'll do that over time. So there you go. That's a review of the different ETFs that we've got in ETF tracker for my portfolio. And I do look at that every now and then to see what kind of ETFs I should be getting into and out of. But if you've got ETFs that you're interested in and you want us to do a review of those, then all you got to do is come to the ETF tracker webpage, go to the forums, and yeah, just put in whether it's in feature request or in the general ideas area. We'll definitely take a look at those. So general ETF discussions. So feel free to add anything that you have or you are interested in looking at, and we'll definitely take a look and see what the data says about it. Okay, have a great day.